Hawaiian brain melt, a very serious, very real affliction. As I begin, two things. First of all, if you enjoyed this video, please thumb it up and share it. There's a lot of work that goes into all these videos. Secondly, if you are going to use Barack Obama as an effort to disprove the medical conditions which I will be describing shortly, I promise you I will be addressing this point of contention. Now, some will tell you that Hawaii has magical powers. From the moment they throw on an arrival lei at the airport, the relaxing commences. You sip some Mai Tais, you take in the beautiful weather and scenery, the gorgeous water, you chill out, and almost to a person, leave the islands feeling completely zonked out. Arriving back on the mainland US, it takes time to adjust back. You feel a little more lethargic, slow of mind, slightly more dull. Generally, these symptoms last anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the severity of your case. What you've experienced is known to the scientific community as Hawaiian brain melt. And while visitors to the islands generally make a full recovery, prolonged exposure has severely detrimental effects on the intelligence of island inhabitants. Doubt me? Let's play a little game. Sit back, take a deep breath, and think about the amazing and marvelous advances that Hawaiian society has brought to our planet. Think of all the advances in science that have come from the islands, the depths of its philosophers, and the myriad of groundbreaking inventions. Let's see, you have the surfboard, you have Don Ho, and the ukulele. Oh, well, I could go on and on. Any scientist worth his salt will tell you that it's not just island fever. They theorize that the brain melt described is unique to Hawaii is a result of being a combination of not so gentle earth chakras aligning specifically in this group of islands and the frequent volcanic activity that has left pollutants in the air affecting everybody who's ever landed there. To contrast, let's take a look at another group of island dwellers. Island dwellers. Doesn't that sound like an insult? You island dweller. But I digress. The islands of Japan have a group who live on them known as, coincidentally, the Japanese. When you think of the world's smartest people, they would likely be near the top of any list. They have become one of the most advanced societies in the world and are always at the cutting-edge forefront of technological change. Although, to be fair to the Hawaiians, the recent advances in Japanese robotics still pale to the Hawaiian invention of the ukulele. So, given this background, what I wish to demonstrate to you are the historical effects of Hawaiian brain melt, with two examples going back as far as the 1940s, using, once again, Japan as a counterweight. A day that will live in infamy. December 7th, 1941. The Japanese attacked the United States and Pearl Harbor. Historians have long scratched their heads, wondering why the Japanese chose to strike the United States in Hawaii, rather than, say, Butte, Montana. The answer is rooted in what Japanese authorities observed when its citizens returned home from their Hawaiian vacations. The wily and intelligent Japanese generals first theorized the existence of Hawaiian brain melt and knew that US forces, having been stationed there for months already in Hawaii, were clearly not going to be in tip-top mental shape. Using a highly advanced statistical model at the time, the Japanese generals calculated that the likelihood of catching America napping and distracted in Hawaii were far greater than anywhere else. Their hypothesis, sadly, was proven correct. But fortunately for world history and for our great country, the average American intelligence of the time was not equal to that of a Hawaiian. Thus, the war was won by the Allies, and Japan was rebuilt and has since been a loyal ally. Now on to an example that still persists today, which originated again in the 1940s when current sitting US Senator Mazie Hirono was born in Japan. So you'd figure that she'd grow up to be a very intelligent woman. Not so fast. Her mother brought her to Hawaii when Mazie was still very young. Sadly, the symptoms of her suffering from Hawaiian brain melt were on full display during the US Senate confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett when she asked the nominee the following.
Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator Hirono.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
Of course, this question is predicated upon woke ideology that there should be no difference in the interrogation of men and women. If my Jewish grandmother was testifying before Congress, would Mazie inquire as to whether my grandma has performed a 360 dunk during an NBA playoff game? If Mazie were a TSA agent, which she possibly has the brains to be, it's not clear, would she perform the same security search and pat-down of an 88-year-old woman as she would a young Arab man with wires coming out of his clothes? If there was a society on the plains of Africa made up entirely of elephants and mice, would Mazie question the mouse as to whether it was him who had trampled over the local village? Look, I'm not going to tell you that there's never been a mouse that has knocked over a house. I'm just saying it's rare. Let me be clear. Just because most Hawaiians are exquisitely stupid does not mean that they are necessarily genetically inferior. It's just that most of them suffer from Hawaiian brain melt. And I promised you that I would address your concerns of Barack Obama as a counter to the medical issue that I have described. He was born, after all, in Hawaii. First of all, the man did not spend a lot of time on the Hawaiian Islands. He moved about as a child. This is widely known. And secondly, there is a subset of Hawaiians that are actually immune to Hawaiian brain melt. But guess what? You'll never find them on the island chain. This is because the Hawaiians have a state law in order not to make other people feel bad, in order that there is true equity there. And, by the way, expect more of these types of laws as Mazie Hirono and her Democratic Party take over the mainland. The law reads as follows. If you have a triple-digit IQ, you're off the island. The Democrats push for true equity. Thank you, Mazie Hirono, for putting this on full display, as well as your Hawaiian brain melt. We should all be aware of this dreaded disease. If you like this video, please thumb it up, share it with a friend, please share it, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. More content comes out like this regularly. Most of all, have a fantastic day, and if you go to Hawaii, make sure that it's a short visit. Peace out.